am coming back from my break. I'm walking in and I see this girl bursting into tears, crying. And I kind of low-key started to panic. I'm like, what if she got 265 questions? What if I get 265 questions? Hey, hey, hey. Are you ready? Are you ready? I passed my NCLEX in 75 questions 2 weeks ago. Yes, I passed my NCLEX in 75 questions. I cannot believe this. I feel like this has been a 2-year-long roller coaster, and now after all the hard work, after all the crying, after all the extra weight loss, I am officially a nurse. I now have RN after my last name. I have my degree, and to add some salt to this pepper, I found a job literally within a week. Now, tune in so I can tell you all about the story of how I passed NCLEX, how I found a job, and the 3 key things that helped me become a nurse and pass this NCLEX and not pass out during that test. Alright guys, so let me tell you about NCLEX and how I studied for NCLEX. I used UWORLD. I had heard all throughout YouTube about UWORLD. UWORLD this, UWORLD that. When I was doing my senior practicum at the CCU a couple months back, the new graduate nurse that was working there was like, look, if you want to pass NCLEX, use UWORLD. So I paid $109 for a 2-month subscription, and that was in September. And from September on to my test date, I used UWORLD. I completed about 1,100 questions, and the whole Q bank is 1,900 questions, but I only was able to complete 1,100 and read those rationales. Now, I had overall a 55% on UWORLD for those 1,100 questions. About a week before I took NCLEX, I did the self-assessment 1, and I received a 60% on that self-assessment, which gave me a very high pass rate. All right, I'm like, yes, I am passing NCLEX, very high chance. I got cocky. So about 2 days before I took NCLEX, I'm like, let me just take the self-assessment number 2, and I got a 50%. I got a 50%, which, it means that I was borderline chance of passing NCLEX. I was in shock, and that is not the news that you want to hear 2 days, 48 hours before you go and take your NCLEX. But you know what? I told myself, I've done all the questions that I possibly could do in 2 months for me personally, and now it's time for me to get ready for this NCLEX. It's in 2 days, so the very next day, I went to the library and I just went over this 35-page nursing review that has been going around YouTube and allnurses.com, and I just went over it with a friend in the library. I went over my basic pharmacology because for me that was my weak spot. And after going on through all of that, I told myself, you've done all you possibly could, and now it's time for you to leave in God's hands and get ready to take NCLEX. So the day before NCLEX, I did not do any questions at all. I told myself, if I do questions and I get like a 40% on this, I'm going to psych myself out. So my advice to you guys, if you're taking NCLEX, 24 hours before you take NCLEX, no more questions. These questions that you're going to do 24 hours before you take the NCLEX will not make a difference as to whether you pass or fail. It really will not. But what I did do 24 hours before I took the NCLEX was I went over my lab values, like your magnesium, your calcium, your phosphorus, your potassium, your sodium, and I also did read over that 35-page review, just skim through it, because we're not trying to study now, we're just reviewing. And I told myself it's time to go to sleep. I did a quick prayer before I went to sleep. I knocked out for 2 hours, and then I kept waking up every 2 hours. I got up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was cool, I was chill. I'm like, oh, NCLEX, I got this. Really, I didn't even feel like I was taking the NCLEX that day. I was just super nervous, to be honest. But I kept, holding it. I kept, playing it off like I was cool. And then when it hit 10 o'clock in the morning and I was like, I have about an hour before NCLEX, before I have to, start driving, it really hit me. And that's when all the tears started flowing, all the waterworks started going down. I started freaking out because I'm like, I cannot fail NCLEX. I spent 20 months in nursing school, 2.5 months almost studying for this NCLEX, and I cannot fail this and do another 45 days and then study and like drive myself crazy. I was like, no, we're passing this today. So we started driving, and we're listening to some music, like some spiritual music. My father was driving me that day. So we're listening to some spiritual music. I'm going over some lab values, you know, that you should have been known since like nursing school, but I'm just reviewing all of it. And then when we get to the testing site, I think I was about an hour early, I told my father, let's drive around. And then he parked a little bit in front of the building, and I told my father, I'm like, look, let's pray. Because I feel like in anything that you're doing, especially something this important, you need to involve God in that decision. So that was number one. What I did is I prayed to God, and I had my father pray with me, and we supplicated. We begged, you know, for him to allow me to have the strength and to have all my anxiety be thrown on him so that I would be able to concentrate and do my best on this test. And yeah, as we were praying, I started crying. After the prayer, I read my two favorite scriptures in the whole wide world, Isaiah 41 verse 10 and 1 Peter 5, 6 through 11. Literally, these scriptures have gotten me through so many things in life. And as I read them, this was just another roadblock in my life that I knew I could not allow to stumble me. So I read it, and I read it with, you know, such feeling and deep belief in that these words are true, that God is holding on to you with his right hand of righteousness. I really believed in that he really did and does care for us as humans. So I read that, I cried some more. I walked in and I took some deep breaths, and I told myself, I got this and God got this. He has my back, and God is greater than the NCLEX. NCLEX is an inanimate object that will make me or break me and allow me to, you know, practice as a nurse. So, you know, I just really tried to put the NCLEX in its place. The NCLEX is simply a test that is given to people who are eligible to sit for this exam to hopefully practice as a nurse. And I kept telling myself that. Then I walk into the building and I see a man, and he's like, where are you going? He's like, which floor are you going to? What are you here for? Sign in. I told him I'm here for Pearson View to take my NCLEX, and he says, all right, it's going to be on the second floor in this room, blah, blah, blah.
So I go in the elevator, I go up the stairs, deep breathing, you know, and after I make a right.
I go into the room, and I literally look inside. I'm like, this is where I'm taking the NCLEX? Like this is where I'm taking my NCLEX? Are you serious? It was, you know, very clean, very friendly staff, and they gave me my rules. They made me read, you know, the rules and regulations of this NCLEX test and what you cannot disclose and all that great stuff. And before I went in, I got my locker key, and then they told me, do you need to use the restroom before you go? And of course, for me, I have like a nervous bladder, so I'm like, I need to go to the restroom. I went in, you know, I looked at myself, I did one last quick prayer, and then I walked right into the test center, and I told myself, Leanna, you got this, you're going to be a nurse today. So one of the staff members walked me in, whispered to me,
no talking, you have 6 hours to complete this test.
And, you know, just went over the rules of the computer, the headphones, and to raise my hand if I needed to take a break, you know, things of that sort. And I sat in front of the computer. There were some practice questions, and then after that, NCLEX started. And the very first question, which is a borderline question on the line, I knew it immediately. I'm like, oh, all right, I know this answer, great, awesome. Number one, I just knew for sure I got it right. Number two, I'm like, okay, it wasn't as easy as the first one, but I felt as if I got the second question correct also. Then the third question came. Then the third question came. Then the third question came. And it was hard. And then the fourth question came, and it was harder. And then it kept going. And I was getting my select all that applies. And every time I got a select all that apply, I got super excited. So I'm like, okay, this must be a good thing. That must mean I'm doing well. And then sometimes I would get like some definitions, like some recall questions. I'm like, okay, take a deep breath, relax, answer the question, and let's proceed. Because I'm passing this NCLEX today. So, it kept going like that. I would get a hard question, an easy question, a hard question, an easy question, select all that apply. You know, it was all over the place. And I really had no idea how I was doing on this test, because after question 1 and 2, the test really got hard. You know, and I was like, I don't know if I'm doing well. I don't know if I'm doing horribly. I'm trying my best here. And as I was taking the NCLEX, I went in there like, I am not in a rush. I don't care if I get a 265 questions. All I knew is those first 75 questions, I was going to take forever and a day on them, because I was going to try my very best on those 75 questions, and whether I had 1 hour to finish the rest of those questions, I was going to do my best on those first 75. So when I would get the question, I would read it at least 3 to 4 times, really slowly, to make sure I understood what the question was asking me. Then, of course, everyone says this, you pick the answer that you feel is the best and your first answer. I would click on the answer, then I would go back to the question and read it again, and then read it again, and then read it again, and then look at my answer, and then look at all the other answers and see why I didn't choose it. And when I'm sure that this is the best answer, you know, to choose, I'm like, all right, let's submit. Question number 2, 10 minutes later. So, yeah, that was my formula for answering each question. When I got to a select all that apply, I would choose what I know for sure is correct. If you looked iffy, if you looked funny, if you didn't smell good, if you looked weird, you were not getting chosen. And I didn't care if it was right or wrong. I'm just like, you look funny, I'm not choosing you. And that's how I went about my select all that applies. I chose what I felt was correct. And if you had 1 word off, I just didn't choose you. That was just, I had to leave you behind. I just was like, no, you're not getting chosen. And after I look at the select all that applies, and I felt comfortable with my answers about what I chose, I would click submit. So the questions are going, they're coming, they're hard, they're easy, they're hard, they're easy, they're hard, they're easy, they're hard, they're easy. And I really had no idea how I was doing on this test. I had no idea. I was just praying every time I came to a question that I chose the best answer, and I was like, God, I'm just leaving it in your hands. Click next. Submit. Submit. So finally, I got to about 50 questions, and I see the blue screen come up. It's over. And then I'm like, oh, it's only 50 questions. It's time for me to take a break. So I raised my hand, and the person that was working there came, and then they took me, and I took my break. About 3 minutes, and I rushed back in. You have to sign in and sign out. When you're taking breaks, remember, you have to sign in and sign out. So be careful with your breaks, because you only have 6 hours, and the time keeps going when you're on your break. So as I am coming back from my break, I'm walking in, and I see this girl bursting into tears, crying. And I kind of low-key started to panic. I'm like, what if she got 265 questions? What if I get 265 questions? And then I took a deep breath. And I sat down and I was like, you know what? God's got me. I did a quick prayer. And I said, you know what? God, me and you and I for these last 25 questions. And then that's how I did it. 25 questions. It took me about an hour and a half to complete. And when I got to question 75, I wasn't cocky. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure whether I was going to start at 75. I told myself, if I stop at 75, great. If I don't, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to collect myself, gather my thoughts, and we're going to go back in for another 25. And that's how we're going to do it. So I get to question number 75. It was a select all that apply. And I looked at it. Up, down, backwards, upwards. I was looking at this question number 75 from all angles. It had been 3 hours for just 75 questions. And I did not know whether I would be going to 265, whether I was going to 100. All I knew is that I wanted to stop. And this question, it was simple, but it wasn't simple. It's NCLEX. You don't know whether you're getting the answer correct. You don't know if you're answering correctly. You don't even know if you are understanding what the question is asking. But after 10 minutes on that question, I told myself, it's in God's hands. God's got me. And whether I stop at 75 or not, it's okay. I'm passing this NCLEX today. He's greater than this test. And so I clicked submit. And a white screen came up and it told me, your NCLEX is over. Now you're going to be doing research questions. I couldn't believe that I had stopped at 75 questions. So I breezed through those research questions. I raised my hand that I was done with this NCLEX, and I'm going to tell you guys, the NCLEX is the hardest exam I have ever taken in my life. The content on NCLEX is not hard. If you pass nursing school, you know the basic nursing knowledge. But your anxiety levels and your reading, your analyzing of these questions, because you know that these questions are going to either make or break you, either give you a nursing license or not, makes you think extra hard. So I left that testing center with a major migraine. I'm telling you, I walked out and I sat down on a bench and I called my father to come pick me up. And I sat down and I started thinking to myself, what if I'm one of those people that failed at 75 questions? I was like, what if UWORLD really didn't work? I felt like I was doing well. And I really wasn't. I have to retake the NCLEX. I couldn't think. I couldn't sleep. All I could do was just sit there and think. I've gone through nursing school. I've gone through so many obstacles to become a nurse. What if I failed my NCLEX the first time? When you want something so bad, to think that in just one test it can be taken away from you, it freaked me out. I couldn't sleep. From what I've heard, for my stage, it takes about 12 to 15 hours for the board to post your license if you pass. 5 o'clock, my license was still not there. 6 o'clock, my license was still not there. 8 o'clock, my license was still not there. 9 o'clock, my license was still not there. It was not posted. So I told myself, I'm like, you know what? I took the test, I did my best. Now, it's either I passed or I failed, and it's okay. People have had to take the NCLEX over again. I just need to restudy, and I got this, you know? And then as I stepped out of my house to go do my own thing, I get a call from my friend, and she asks me, is your middle name this? And my middle name is like top secret, like nobody knows it, only my family knows it because it's so horrible. But she asks me, is your middle name this? And I was like, yes, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark over text. And she told me the beautiful news that my license had posted on our board of nursing, and I was officially an RN. What a relief that was. I, along with God and my family's support, passed the NCLEX in 75 questions. Alright guys, so I felt that there were 3 things that really helped me in passing the NCLEX. Those 3 things were, number 1, your basic nursing knowledge. You can't walk in there and not have basic nursing knowledge. You need to know your ABCs. You need to know your lab values. You need to have nursing assessments. You need to know who to see first. You need to have your basic nursing knowledge down packed. Okay? Number 1. Number 2, you need to go in with a positive mindset. If you go in with a good mindset, with a positive mindset that I'm going to be a nurse today, God's got my back, and you prayed and you've done everything to calm yourself down because you know that your God's got you, your brain's got you, and your positivity's got you, you're going to do great. And number 3, you need to study. If you just think you're going to walk into NCLEX and just wing it, but no, you need to study, and I would suggest using UWORLD. But I can tell you that UWORLD really makes your brain think. It really challenges you, makes you think like a nurse, so that when you walk into the NCLEX, these questions, they're not the same at all. You will never find the same NCLEX questions at all. They, however, challenge your brain to think as if you're taking the NCLEX. It actually every question on UWORLD is so hard that you really, even for the most simplest things, you have to really think. And that's the way NCLEX works. Some questions are very simple in NCLEX, but then other questions you have to really, really, really think. You have to read the question over 5 times. Read over your responses, the multiple choice, and understand what it's asking you, and choose the best answers to your ability. A good mindset, preparation, and belief in God will get you a pass on NCLEX. That's what helped me. Also, I have some great news. Literally, the same day I took NCLEX, I had a voicemail on my phone from a hospital that I had applied to literally 2.5, 3 months before, and they called me the day of my NCLEX for an interview. Within a week after finding out that I passed my NCLEX, I was at my interview, and literally 2 days after that, I received and earned myself a job on the telemetry floor as a new graduate. I am super excited. I'm really excited to be a new nurse. I'm really excited to just become someone who's going to help people and be there for my patients and try my best for them. So I'm really, really, really excited. After all your hard work, to know that you actually have a job now and you're going to be able to take care of your patients, this is why I went to nursing school for. To help people. To help them, whether it's their end of life, feel the most comfortable that they can feel, and to be there for family members, because I know what it feels like to be a family member and have someone dying or have someone not feeling well. It's an exciting feeling. It's a beautiful feeling. And that's why I chose to become a nurse. And I'm excited. And I'm looking forward to sharing all of these beautiful things with you guys. Please feel free to leave questions below. Please subscribe and ask me questions about how I got my job, how many more other tips that I have for studying for the NCLEX, and why I went into nursing. Anything that you guys would like to know, please feel free to ask me, and I am looking forward to hearing from you in the comments below. Please have a beautiful day, and if you are a nursing student and someone who's studying for NCLEX, English isn't your first language, you're married, you have kids, don't feel like you can't pass. Because my school that I went to was made up of many immigrants, made up of a lot of older people who were married with children who were teenagers, people who are making nursing their second career, people whose English isn't very well spoken. And guess what? Everyone that I've spoken to has passed the NCLEX out of 30-something of us from my nursing program. And these are mothers and fathers, people who speak English as a second or third language, people who had to quit their jobs, people who failed a nursing class before, people who aren't even the top of their class, and they all passed. So don't feel like anyone is more special than you. You can do it, I did it, and I'm not more special than you. So I'm coming to a hospital near you, and I am looking forward to being a new nurse. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I am looking forward to hear what you guys have to say in the comments below. Have a beautiful day, guys.